Yeah, it's up. Okay. So, welcome everyone, and happy to see you all at the final event of this year, 2024. And we're looking forward for some interesting topics today. Um, Jyoti, can we move to the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm your host, one of the hosts, I would say, and my name is Viraj. I'm a Tableau user group ambassador. So you must have seen me post a lot of stuff about Tableau user group recently and for the past 2 3 years, talking a lot about Tableau user group as a program and how it is wonderful to connect and learn through these events. I'm a lead analyst at Merkle, and I'm very passionate about community engagement and Tableau as overall. And I'm happy to connect and discuss about career guidance because that's how I've started recently guiding a lot of freshers and new joiners and anything about data visualization. You can connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter, and in general, you can Google data tastemaker and you can land on one of my social media profiles. Yes, go Jyoti, over to you.
Thanks, Viraj. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Mumbai Tug. And I think it's the last event of the year, and we wanted to make it really full. So we have some amazing speakers today. But before I introduce them to you, let me introduce myself. If you have first time joined our talk. So I'm currently working as an AVP at JP Morgan and Chase, and I'm a Tableau Public Ambassador. I really like working on data analytics and visualization. I love experimenting with the visual designs. Why? Because it really gives you a perspective around how a visual um, can fit for a certain set of users, but not for the others. So you always need to experiment. If not data, I usually work on art and craft projects, currently exploring the macrame world. I really made some of the bags for myself and some art pieces, wall art pieces. So, yeah, that's what I do apart from it. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, you can connect with me on Twitter, but if you want to just explore my portfolio, you can go on Tableau Public site and just type my name. You'll get the portfolio, and I would really love to connect with each and every one of you. All right, so today our tag agenda is two topics. The first one is Beyond the Numbers Ethical Data Storytelling by the amazing Shazira, and a very good friend and amazing human. And the another one is Dashboard Design Principles by Swati, and again another friend and my ex-colleague. So yeah, exciting. Next, we are going to have the Q&A, and then finally something for Christmas. I would say the gift. We are going to do a lucky draw based on whoever have joined us. We'll collect the names and find out who the lucky person is, and we'll have some specs for you guys. All right. So our first speaker, Shazira, I would just like to take a minute to introduce her to all of you. She's a data analyst at Swissquote Bank, and she has been a Tableau ambassador, I think, from the last 3 years. So that's wonderful. She's from Switzerland, and before coming into the data field, she was a human rights and legal advocate, which is amazing. Like for 18 years, that's amazing experience to come in data with. And she's also a published comic artist as well, which is like, how many skills do you have, Shazira? So yeah, over to you, Shazira. Please take over the presentation as well. I will just stop sharing.
Thank you so much for the kind and generous introduction, Jyoti and Viraj. And hello, everyone. Hello, Swati. Hello,
Hey.
Viraj.
Yeah.
I'm just so fortunate and happy to be here today, and it's It's 2:30 p.m. here in Switzerland. So I know it's quite late over there in India, but thank you so much for your support and for being part of this tug. So I will just share my screen to start our presentation. Uh-huh. Let's see if it works.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Ah, brilliant. Okay. So when Jyoti approached me to talk about this particular topic, of course, I say yes. I think it is something that is close to my heart because to me, no matter where I'm working, either as a human rights advocate or now as a data analyst, the whole importance of ethical storytelling is always there. And I think it's a good reminder as well that while we handle the numbers, behind each number, there's definitely a story and someone's trauma and pain. So that's always kind of a reminder that I tell myself. So before I go into the whole presentation, I just want to tell you that another reason why I say yes to today is because to me it's coming in a full circle. My first human rights training was actually in Mumbai. It was in a place called Yuva Center in Karga, Navi Mumbai, and I was there for 5 weeks. It was like my first trip abroad, my first exposure to human rights work and human rights advocacy, and it happened in Mumbai. So I think it just makes sense for me to, to return to Mumbai in a way, although virtually, to share with you about some of my experience around this topic. So, as Jyoti already explained, I went through a couple of different professional transitions in my life. I started off with law and human rights, and then I go to data analytics. But believe me or not, there's definitely a lot of things, a lot of skills, a lot of questions around ethical storytelling that transition in every part of my career, in every part of my life. So I think no matter what you do or where you work, this topic will be very relevant. It's just that for the purpose of today, maybe I will bring back some of the experience I have before working in the field of law and human rights. So I want to try this out. Can all of you go to this particular link and try to open it, either on your phone or on your laptop or wherever you are? Can you do that for me?
And do you want to share that link or?
Oh, is it hard to? Okay, it's here. It's let me try.
You can share in the chat, Shafira.
All right. Ooh, how do I do that?
Mm,
I think escape.
Let me just stop sharing for a while. I'm bad at this, apparently. Um,
no worries.
ooh, I lost my presentation.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. I'm gonna get there. If
No
can
rush.
you can bear with me for a second. Mm, I'll go there again, and I'm gonna share. Voila.
Yes. Thank you.
Got it.
Got it? Okay. So you, I think, will open to um, a picture, a visual.
For me, it says that it's a private photo.
Pirate. It's a
I can
pirate.
see that. I
No,
can
no,
see the picture.
privacy error.
Can you see?
Yes, I can see that. Or
Okay.
is it because of the country?
It's
Ah, possible. So, okay, what a shame. I was about to try something, which is I did an infinity, and I will share it maybe in a different way. But what I did was I did an infinity visual to show to you how a data that you receive or you read on a newspaper, where it comes from in the end, and just to show you like a quick journey into that. But it's understandable if the app doesn't work in some parts of the world maybe, but we'll see if I can share it in a different way. So no problem at all.
If you want, you can open it in your browser and show it.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea actually. Let me try. Can you see it?
You're not
Um,
sharing it.
You'll have to
Oh,
share your screen again. Yeah.
okay, I will.
For
Uh,
me, it just showed as the news today refugees at risk. Yeah, that's the image
yes.
that I can see. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do a very short version of this. So I think one of the thing that we have to realize when we work with data is where are those data comes from. So I thought that I make this um, artwork just to explain to you that behind every data, of course, you will see the person or the group or the organization that handles the data, that convey the data, or pass the data to the final product, as in the picture. And then what sometimes we forget is that how the data comes from another source, which is at the end of it, right? Which is the person who is the owner of the data. So we're talking of the refugees or the survivors of sexual violence, or people who experience difficulties in certain circumstances. So we always sometimes forget what are the elements behind the data. So I just want to sort of do quickly um, that to sort of reinforce the element that at the core of the data, is it clear now, or can you see my presentation again?
No.
No?
it's again stopped.
Yeah, I think I have to. It's all right. This is one of those days. Okay, so at the core of data,
Yes.
there are human experience, and it can be someone's happy accomplishment, it can be a tragedy, or it can be their trauma. And in many contexts, these data are shaped, influenced, or interacted with power, censorship, or corruption. This is the reality. So, in my experience before, when I was working as a human rights advocate or legal advocate, um, I'm well aware that the data or information that I receive normally goes through this very challenging or difficult funnel before I get it. And so it's very important for me to be self aware of what is really at the core of the data, and to think carefully of the messages or the visualizations or how I want to communicate the data. So some of the questions sometimes that we ask ourselves is, what are the right ways to deal with this data? Are there examples or use cases that can help us? And I sometimes wonder, is it really important for us to visualize this data, or are we prepared to face difficult questions related to using this data? So there were a lot of dilemmas, of course, and questions that you will ask yourself when you are, you are asked to, or you're tasked to handle this data. And of course, there are other questions to consider as well. Questions such as, do I have to segregate the data to show the granularity of it? Do I have to visualize specific vulnerabilities? Um, is the way that I design or I approach my dashboards, reinforcing some social or cultural stereotypes? Is this visualization perpetuating bias and discrimination? And I think one of the most important and first question that I always ask myself is, would visualizing something or visualizing a data disempower the victims or the survivors? Because at the end of the day, you are just a storyteller. You are given the data and you have a certain role for it. But the question is whether what you do with it can empower or disempower the owner of the data itself. So one of my key reference, and I want to talk a bit about this today because I think this is really relevant to the work that we do. And regardless, if you work as a lawyer or if you work as a data analyst in a corporate, to me, the awareness and the knowledge that you will hear today is applicable in the context of your work. So one of the reference that I think which is very useful and should be discussed today is the do no harm principle. So the do no harm principle is a very important principle in my human rights and advocacy work, because the idea is you have to consider and to think how your actions or strategies will not cause harm or further bringing additional risks or other risks to the people that you're working with or to whoever you are interacting with. So the do no harm principle is key to ensure that you can prevent the owners of the data, for instance, from being subjected to further discrimination, further reprisals from others. So that's the basic idea of the do no harm principle. Now, what is interesting is that there is actually a comprehensive guide that is actually done by Urban Institute in collaboration with Tableau that really goes deeper into how the do no harm principle can be implemented. So this is more contextualized and specified to your dashboards, to your data visualizations. So how do you apply the lenses of equity, social justice, diversity, and inclusion in your data visualization? So some of the examples is, like how you label a certain data related to a person, what kind of names or labels that you should use for them, what sort of images that actually are appropriate or should be exuding the principles of inclusion and diversity. So these are some of the elements that the principle, the guide, are looking into. So I leave you here with the link. You can have a look at it. And I find it really, really useful. Even now, I think when you're working with corporate data, it's always interesting to see that some of these elements, some of these principles are actually very, very universal. So I want us to have a short discussion because I think it's interesting just to get into some of the use cases of how this is applied. So feel free to put down your answers, or if you want to, take the floor to share your insights, you can do it as well. But I want you to look at the first case and give it a thought. How would you actually deal with it? So the case is, what if you have a set of data that is about perhaps survivors who wanted to have their story told or to have their issues highlighted publicly. And what happened is then suddenly they decided to retract their data from the study. They refused to be part of the report. They consented earlier, but now they felt like they don't want to be part of it anymore. So as a storyteller, based on just, a snapshot of what I gave you earlier, what do you think is the best way, or what should you do in this situation? Remember, there's no right or wrong answers. This is a discussion. And I think, we are trying to explore and find out ways of dealing with these situations. So, is there any interest, any takers from the audience who want to share your inputs? No?
I think it is something very new for everybody.
No problem. So, I think what is very important if you are ever faced with such situation is to think. You can share. Okay, I saw now. Oh, we have some very interesting response. Thank you for adding your thoughts in the chat box. So we have one from Sajif Kuru, says that we should respect their opinion and don't go ahead. Thank you for your opinion. And the next one is Vaishrada Sriram. You can share case without revealing their personal details. So I will not say one is right or the other is incorrect, but let's see and let's discuss these two answers. So in this case, I think you are right. At the core of it is that we should respect their opinion, what the owners of the data wants. Because at the end of the day, the idea is you want to highlight their case and you want to empower them. But if your efforts to visualize their data is disempowering them, is causing them to feel discomfort, to feel uncomfortable, then you should consider maybe it's not the best way to deal with their information or their data. So that's the first layer of the discussion. But then I also like what Sri Dasiram say. Why don't we just share the case without revealing their personal details? Why can't we just go ahead? We already have the data. We can anonymize it. We don't have to go so granular into revealing some maybe aspects of the data that could make people know who these people are. But is that the right way to go? Jyoti also added something. Masking the data can help and it should be bias free. Absolutely. So, yes, you can also still open the conversation actually. Share importance of sharing their case to the world, what value they can add to others who survived similar kind of trauma. Love the response, Shraddha. So you all gave really, really great response. What I will say is that what you say about all that, masking the data, anonymizing it, sharing the importance of, what happened to them needs to be shared with the world. All of this actually can be very, very important content that you can actually um, use to discuss and to consult them further. So don't maybe close the door for a conversation. Maybe you can open the discussion and ask them and offer this as a solution. So it's not really like, maybe they don't know that it can be done without causing them risk or affecting their safety. So this means that in this case, you need to be consulting the owners of the data. You need to be talking to them if it's needed. You need to be involving them in the process. And this is how you sort of, looking beyond the numbers. Beyond the numbers that you have is also the bad experience, the trauma that these survivors want to forget. So these are some of the strategies or actions that you can use. But if at the end of the day they say to you that, I'm sorry, even if you say all that, I still have this fear that I will be subjected to reprisal or intimidation, then you have to respect their wishes. and not continue. And remember, there are other ways that you can do or you can use to actually help them highlight their issues to the world. So this is one way of looking at this case. Now, I want to share with you another case. Oh, again. I'm sorry, Mumbai Tug. I'm very bad at this.
No problem.
Can you see my... It just went off again for me. Okay, it's
We can
here.
see.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the next one. Now, the next one is also interesting, and I face this myself, and I think some of us do as well. So let's say that you have a visualization that is dealing with a topic. This is maybe something linked to what Shraddha said as well. Is dealing with a topic that may cause discomfort or evoke past trauma, but it is a vis that could educate others. Maybe you don't have contact with the owners of the data. Maybe this is a data that you take from, let's say, a public website, a governmental website that looks into the condition in prison, or the issues of social injustice in the country. Sometimes you do deal with the data, and it's a public data. It's there for you to use. But then again, it's a very difficult topic. So how do you deal with this? What do you think you can do to mitigate this situation? Hmm.
I think we should be very empathetic and sensitive towards that data, even if those people who felt this are not in front of us. Um, we should sensitivize the importance of that particular topic. In this case, that's past trauma, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think when you say educate others, it is quite an important one, because even though we have seen so many cases like Palestinian, all
Mm-hmm.
these kind of things that are going on in the world war, all this trauma that is happening. So even though all of this are part, and when you say that it is available for the government in the government website, I think that the educate others part brings me more attention to. So it is quite important to, even though there is the trauma that is attached, you also need to understand the reality of it. So I would go by actually learning about things.
Oh, wonderful, insightful view. Um, so it can be difficult, and I face this in some of my visualizations as well. So I want to share an example of a visualization that I did on prisoners on death row. It was one of the visualizations that I did in 2022, and it invited a lot of conversations. There were even some people who were quite emotionally um, came to me and say, trying to engage and trying to ask further about the visualization. So I don't know if you've seen it before, but so you can find this on my Tableau public. So it's called The Last Words. And what I did was I did a sentiment, well, more like a text analysis, to understand that in the last words of the prisoners on death row in Texas correctional facility, um, what do they say? What are the common words that they use or they say in their last words? And these last words, some of them could be quite troubling and can cause discomfort, because while some were repenting and say good things about that they want to move forward, they regretted what happened. I mean, they're also on a death row, which means that they're going to be executed anytime soon. So there's a lot of of the words that deal with spirituality, with faith, with family, love of the world. But at the same time, there are also words or speeches that are quite troubling. You have to go to the visualization. So if you click on the white strand that you see on each of the red dot, you will see that each of the strand represent the speech. So I reproduce the whole speech because I want people to understand and to know where these words are coming from. Secondly, I want to be transparent as well. I don't want people to think that I'm making up these speeches because it's quite a delicate topic. And so I sort of reproduce all of it. And this comes from a public website. It's public data. So I sort of mine the data, extract it, clean it up, and then I did the text analysis. So it was quite a difficult topic because I'm only visualizing the last words of people on death row. And family members of the victim might read this. People who might have issues with the topic will read this. It is in the public out there when I promoted it on social media. And so it invited a lot of responses. And I have to admit, I learned a lot from that process. So I'm sharing here an example of one of the conversation I have with one of the Twitterati. And he was very constructive. He just told me, there are other parts of the whole justice system when it comes to death penalty that maybe I should focus on as well in my future work. And also, what about talking about the victims? Because they are suffering a lot from what happened. And some of the victims, passed away or died because of the actions of the perpetrators. And so now the family members are reading this. So it is quite a heavy loaded conversation. And I have a lot of that. And some of them also approach me in private to ask me. And I appreciate and I deal with all the questions as constructive and as understanding as possible. So in the end, what I did was, instead of just showing the visualization up front like that, I actually added another layer and put a disclaimer on the visualization, which means that I'm allowing people to opt out instead of automatically opting in reading the visualization. I'm letting people know that if you decide to click this is what you will see. And you can always choose not to see it. And so whoever who made the decision to select it, then, this is what you'll see. So I learned this a lot from other great data fam members like Kim Lee Scott, other you can see them in the Tableau public gallery. That when it comes to sensitive topics, it's always good to put a disclaimer. So I immediately added another layer of disclaimer, and now I'm feel a bit more reassured that my visualization will be enjoyed or read by people who are aware of what they get themselves into. And I think in today's world where information is at your fingertips, you are bombarded with information every day, every type of information. I think it's always good to let people stop and think and decide what information that can affect them mentally and emotionally. So this is one way that you actually can do to your visualization. You realize the importance of creating the visualization. You want to educate others, definitely. But you also have to be mindful that the stories that you visualize can affect others who might have the chance to look at it. So this is one example. And the second thing I learned from this process was also that one one visualization cannot explain everything. And so that sort of informed me in the follow-up conversation that you will have with people, which means to me, I try not to be defensive if people start questioning or bringing up new viewpoints about my visualization, because I'm aware that I'm only telling one part of the story. There are more to it, and one visualization cannot give you the whole picture. So you also have to be ready to accept that and to see what are other viewpoints that people will bring into the conversation. I think that is a very, very useful tip. So people come to me and say, why don't you do this? Why don't you? And I admit it. I tell them what I was trying to do. My goal, I said, is to show people or to bring people more awareness about death penalty and what kind of people who are being subjected to death penalty. So it's not really of so deeper look that I'm going to bring the voice of the victim as well, at least through this visualization. So you have to sort of, be ready to handle the follow-up conversation that always come with dealing with this data. And I think that is also part of the ethical storytelling. It doesn't just stop the moment you visualize the data. Actually, it just begin. It begins from there. You need to continue, especially when people are interested in your visualization. So um, now I sort of kind of prepare a short practical checklist for all of you that I think could be useful because I also use them to sort of use to run through your visualizations when you are trying to approach a difficult topic or a topic that you felt would invite all these questions. And I'm saying this because you know, depending on the data that you are dealing with, you will always deal with ethical questions. Even in the corporate world, there's always questions of data privacy, data security. You still deal with it. And if you are a human rights advocate like me years before, of course, you will always deal with data that, as I said, interact with a lot of elements that might affect the quality and the sensitivity of it. So let's look at the first two part of the checklist. So the first one, of course, when it comes to data integrity and accuracy, to me, always make sure that your data comes from reliable and unbiased sources. This is very crucial. And for me, this is the part where I do a lot of triangulation, which means that I would try to find more than one, two, or three sources about the same topic and start triangulating just to make sure that there is some consistency to the data that I'm dealing with. And of course, after that, as usual, we clean, we remove the errors. But then the next thing that we have to give a good thought about is the representation. What or how would you visualize this data? And I'm sure Swati, you will get a lot more about that in her session about the design. But I think you have to think even from the beginning when you're sketching, before you're prototyping, you have to think a bit more about how to visualize the data. The second thing or element that I put in my checklist is about fairness and objectivity. And this is very, very important. Some of you already mentioned about biasness. We all are human beings. We all have our biasness. This is a reality. And so it's very important to keep that check as well. So the first thing is contextualization. I think it's very important to always give sufficient context to the visualization that you do. If you don't have the information, it's always good to share or to add some references, external websites that you feel could help people understand the topic better. So, for instance, when I was doing my visualizations on mental health issues, um, I always like to add a link where people can actually go and look for credible sources to figure out more about the situation or the topic. Be mindful as well of your own personal biasness. We are human again. So always strive for objectivity. For me personally, if I think that I cannot be objective about a certain issue, I would stop myself and try to, to take a step back and see if it's going to cause more harm or not if I pursue the topic. And I think this is important. The last one on this element is, of course, diverse perspective. As I said, it's always good to see, for instance, the data fam is the community have a wealth of information and examples. You can always go and check if you see other people have already talked or visualized about the topic as well, just to see, what are the other insights, what are the viewpoints, and see if your visualization can help enrich that or complement that further. And if there's none, I would always talk as well to other people in the community, because I think it's always good to have extra sounding boards, because when things are just in your head and you think like, I'm right, I'm correct. But then, it's always good to just to have a check-in with somebody that you can talk to in the community. And on that point, if you ever feel like, you want to have that conversation with me, and if I'm available, I am not busy, we can always have a quick chat, a conversation as well, if you want to, about the visualizations that you want to do. Now, the next one is transparency and accountability. This is also important because I think, depending on the quality of data, you will have to go through a lot of processes to gather the data, to collect the data. And it's always nice and good to explain the methods of how you do it, of how you gather it. And also, if you can, it's also good to acknowledge if there's any ethical implications coming out from the data or the visualization. So you can add something, to the visualization to say that, for instance, this data should only be used for educational purposes. This visualization is only for you to have some basic understanding about a certain issue. It should not be, for instance, shared arbitrarily, or it should not be used for A, B, C, and D. It's always good to also kind of frame the way your users or the way your readers are going to enjoy your visualization. This is also one thing that you can add to your visualization. The next one is inclusivity and accessibility. This is the last one. And I think this is something that might be closely linked to what Swati will share later. So the first one is universal design. I mean, in terms of accessibility, it's always important for you to think about, all walks of life in the society that can enjoy your visualization, especially if you want to educate them about a specific topic. So make sure that your visualization can be accessible. And there are set of rules, best practices around that. I'm not going to touch on that today. And maybe Swati can answer some of those for you later. The next one is cultural sensitivity. So we thought, but what? We're just doing charts here. We're just doing spark lines. We're just doing, bars. Where does cultural sensitivity comes in? Well, believe it or not, colors, images, fonts, in some cases, could evoke this, could actually reinforce some stereotypes. The way, if you use your images, your icons for women, men, gender, all that. So you have to see what are the most appropriate way for you to use these images, colors, and text to avoid, cultural stereotypes and biasness. The last one is clear communication. Some of these things, we use jargon or we use technical terms to explain some of these issues. And to me, it's always good to try and use simple language. If those jargons can be further, explained and replaced by simpler terms, use it. And if you want to, you can also add definition to your visualization. If you feel like they need to know the jargon, make sure that you keep the people informed and aware of what these jargons mean. So these are some of the things that I added on the chat list that I think you could use to, go through when you're trying to build a story using the data ethically. And I don't know if you have any questions, but now we're on the last part of my presentation. I just want to leave you with some takeaway points. First, you are the storyteller. Use your voice or visas to empower and not de-inspire the owners of the story. Remember that. We're just storytellers. Avoid sensationalization. You have to draw the line. And this means as well, avoid your bias, avoid, avoid the noises that distract others from actually understanding and enjoying the visualization and the message that you are trying to convey. Third, research and plan your visas. This goes into the references, the goal, which is very important. What is actually the goal of your visualizing it? Especially when you talk about a topic that is sensitive, what is the goal? And if you feel like the goal is not enough for you to continue, why do you continue? Think about that. So think about the messages. The fourth is always be engaging and constructive in the follow up conversation. To me, kindness, empathy is key to ensuring that you can be an ethical storyteller. Everyone has opinion, everyone wants to engage. So be patient, be understanding, and be constructive. And I'm sure, you will invite people to want to know more about the topics that you're visualizing. Last but not least, of course, I know this is so obvious, and we always forget what's obvious. So remember what's behind the data, so that next time when you see those numbers, you know that you're not just merely visualizing some numbers, but behind the number, there are other stories of people out there that are actually going to enjoy or look at your visualization later on. So thank you very much. That is my presentation for today, and I'm happy to answer any questions. If you have any opinion or thoughts, you can put it in the chat box, or we can deal with it later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yazira. This was really inspirational, and I bet whenever I'm next designing visualization on any sensitive topic, these are the points I'm going to use. So thank you so much for enlightening us.
Thank you.
Uh, all right. So we are on to our next uh, topic by amazing Swati. So just let me introduce her and then I'll hand over to her. Is my screen visible?
Not yet. Not yet. Yeah. Mm, yes.
All right. So our next speaker of the day is Swati, and she's currently living in UK, but her roots are from Hyderabad, India. She's currently working as a business intelligence specialist at JLL, and I personally know her, so I know what kind of talent goes behind being a BI specialist at JLL. And she loves problem solving, creative thinking, logical reasoning are some of her forte. And she has worked in multiple diverse industries. So somebody wants to take some feedback, suggestion, you can definitely seek the feedback from her. And apart from data, she loves art and music. So amazing. She's going to talk today about the dashboard design principles. So over to you, Swati. Take the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Jyoti. Thanks for the nice introduction. And thank you, Shazira, for enlightening us. That was wonderful presentation. Let me share my screen and give me a heads up if you can see that. Right. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Right. We have listened to Shazira, some of the most sensitive and very important topic. Let's dive into some of the lighter notes of creating dashboards and understanding some of the design principles that go behind creating dashboards. Right. So today the agenda would be I'll be covering what is the importance of the design, some of the design principles. I'm not going to touch all of them. It by itself is a vast subject, as you all know. So I'll be only covering some of them. And the best review programs that we have at JLL, probably if you don't have one, you could actually leverage in your company as well. So before I talk about anything, I just want you to look at this video. Just let me know if you can hear the audio of this video. Um, Once I click the play button there.
Yes,
This is
we can.
product.
Yes,
It is. Can you describe what's on the table in front of you?
I think it's fantastic. It's fun, it's unique, it's beautiful.
So this is a unique product.
That's correct.
Here's one of your competitors. Here's another one of your competitors. Now, to me, that just looks exactly the same.
So to me, they don't look the same.
They're identical.
It's hand packed.
That won't make any difference to the consumer.
I think the bow on the top adds to the value of it.
So it's the bowl.
let me play it again if it was too fast for you to listen.
This is one of your products, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Can you describe what's on the table in front of you?
I think it's fantastic. It's fun, it's unique, it's beautiful.
So this is a unique product.
That's correct.
Here's one of your competitors. Here's another one of your competitors. Now, to me, that just looks exactly the same.
So to me, they don't look the same.
They're identical.
It's hand packed.
That won't make any difference to the consumer.
I think the bow on the top adds to the value of it.
So it's the bowl.
So while she was talking, sorry,
This is
I
one.
have one question to you here. What do you think she must have answered differently, or what do you think she must have given an answer? Just put it in the chat or come out of mute. Feel free to come out of mute and talk about it. Any answers? I cannot see the chat window by itself, but are there any answers, Jyoti?
Not
Are
yet.
there-
Yeah,
Right.
there's one which says presentation. Could be something different in the presentation.
Okay. Yeah. Any more thoughts on that?
Logo. Someone saying it's logo.
Okay, so it's more about like maybe changing the packaging or something like that, right? So while we actually laugh about the
There's
video,
one more. Sorry, there's one more. She could
yeah,
have talked
perfect.
about what's inside, like say nutrition value or so, or
Perfect.
benefits.
That's exactly what I was about to talk about. So she could have actually understood what her unique selling point was, all in all, right? She could have told probably the candy that by itself has got more nutrients in it. It could have been something more exceptional than what other competitors are actually having, right? So the product in her instance is the candy box, but for us as developers or analysts, for us it is the dashboard by itself. So it is quite important for us to understand what we are trying to convey to the user and what the USP of our dashboard is. And how can we actually achieve this is by knowing what is the best recipe that we can bring out of the dashboard. So the best recipe for a dashboard lies in understanding one, the design of the dashboard, two, good data, and three, storytelling. So um, if you say if you have a dashboard with good data and a compelling story, but there's no good design, it goes into a cluttered, it might lead into a compromised user experience. When I say good data, it is understanding the business acumen, the maintainability and scalability of the data itself. And if one of it is missing, there is something that is missing from the whole dashboard itself, right? So if you have good design and a compelling story, but no good data, then it leads to a distrust in the user. So he might not trust your dashboard. He might not come back to you asking like, this dashboard is not relevant to me. I can't look into the numbers of it. This doesn't match to what I think it should be. So things like that happen. And when you have good design and good data, but no storytelling, it leads to an ineffective dashboard. So the ultimate goal for an analyst or a developer again should be having a strike between all these three elements. There should be a balance of all the elements that you're touching when you're creating the dashboard. But today we will not be touching about good data and storytelling. We'll be more focusing on the design aspect of the dashboard. So why is design important? The most important thing is that you can present complex information into a more simple and clear way for the user to understand. And he can actually understand more easily than looking into an Excel sheet or having it as a picture in the format of a dashboard or anything as such. It provides or it grabs so much of attention and it keeps him engaging. So I really like this quote by Mark Twain, which actually talks like, I did not have time to write a short letter. Instead, I wrote a long one. So basically, this touches our design principle of simplification. Even though, sorry about it, simplification basically requires a lot of effort, and a well designed dashboard with fewer and carefully chosen elements is more effective than an overloaded one, isn't it? It is easier to add more elements to the dashboard, but the real challenge lies when you're trying to have only fewer elements or distilling the complex information into the most essential parts. So that is the most complicated thing. You can just put anything on the dashboard, but how you just deliver what is required is the most difficult part. And while it may take longer to actually give you a more simple dashboard, it will be more effective. And let's see how it can happen. So this is one of the ways that I haven't run. And let's try and simplify this and see what we can achieve. And let's see the transformation of it as well. So here I see that there is this world population over time, and I see a visual overload of this chart, right? So what I'm going to try and do is we'll just simplify this chart. So first thing that is bothering me is the color, the background color of the chart itself. So let's remove the background. And now I don't see a need for the legend because each of the bar is already representing an year there, right? Let's remove the legend as well. Now, each year is actually present on the x-axis and it doesn't need a color because you're already telling that it's all of them are years. Essentially, it's not a category, right? There's only one category there. Let's remove the color for each of the bars there. And the next one that I'm going to put up is a little contradictory. You can ask me a question on that, but I have reduced the data points. Here I see that there are 44 data points that I can see for each bar. Probably if I can just reduce it to half only for each decade, then you can see that I've simplified the number of or reduced the number of data points on the chart. You could actually argue on this, saying that probably I would require all the 44 points. Yes, you might. So you have to be very careful when you're reducing, sorry about that, when you're reducing the number of data points there. Also, here on the last bar, you can see that this is 2024, which is the current year. And You could probably have a forecast of 2030 as well, or you could just put a star saying that this is the current year representation of the world population. And the next one I would like to remove is the axis labels. Instead of having the labels by themselves, I just want to put the numbers of each bar, like what is the population of 1980 or 1990 there. Sorry, I have a bad throat today. And the next one is, now I have the grid lines there. I don't think there is a requirement now because I've already removed the chart labels there. So let's remove the grid lines as well. So now, if someone asks me what is the population of 1990, I don't want to go back saying that 5327803110. I don't know what that is like to to my eye. I just wanted to make it simplified, right? Let's make it simplified. Let's round it up, saying that it is 5.3 billion. It's much easier, isn't it? So once you have, if you know that you have only one or two charts on your dashboard, it is quite easy for us to use all the space on the dashboard, isn't it? You could actually reduce the size of the dashboard as per requirement and then make it simpler. So let's see the transformation from where we are to where we have come. So from this, what I can already tell that at least 0.8 billion of increase is present every year, every decade, right? So from the previous chart, I couldn't make any conclusions or I couldn't understand what it is. It was so cluttered, so clumsy, and so overloaded. So it is quite important to simplify your data and simplify what you're presenting. So the next one that we will be covering is the visual hierarchy. I have a little exercise for you. Can uh, Can you either put it in the chat or again come out of mute and rank the circles in the order of importance, please? Sorry, can someone read it out? I can't see the chat.
So everybody's saying DBCA.
Exactly. So how did you say that? You just looked at by the size of the circles, isn't it? So just remember this one. You have looked at the size of the circles and you've just ranked those circles in the order of importance. Now, what if I add some color to these bubbles? What do you think the order would be? And is it any different?
Anybody wants to take a dab at it in the chat?
He will read first, as someone saying, and then
Exactly. So how did
DB.
you come about that? So it's going to be C as 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So it is based on the contrast of the bubble, like whatever the color that has been added. Or it could be either, you could come and say me, like all the shades of gray could go into that. Like the dark gray could be one, and the next one would be the lighter gray, and the pale gray would be the third, and then comes the fourth. So it could be that. So it totally depends on the contrast of the dashboard elements or whatever that's present on the view. So the next one is these circles. What do you think is the order of importance? Should be as simple as that.
From top to bottom, A, B, C, D.
Correct. So it is based on the number, sorry, the character A, B, C, and D, and the top-down approach that you've come by, right? So the rank would be 1, 2, 3, 4. And so this one, in the languages that are read from left to right, the readers usually start by looking at the top of the page, right? So it is quite important that where you have placed your element of the dashboard or the more important key message on the dashboard makes a lot of difference. So even if you walk into a supermarket, you can notice that the most important or the most the product that has come new into the market would be placed on the top somewhere in the aisle. So it's like that. So the placement of the chart on the dashboard is also quite important. So it the user basically learns from starts to read from left to right. But there are some languages where people start reading from right to left, like in Arabic, people read from right to left, isn't it? So in that approach, most commonly we just read from left to right. Um, Either you can use that technique or of placing your most important on the top right, sorry, top left, and the least important one onto the bottom right. So this one is like we have touched on three different things. Like one was the size of the bubbles that you've looked at, and if you're adding a contrast, and what is the position of the each element of the dashboard. So this one is quite interesting. Like this picture, if you see this one, you can see that the first one that you'll read is the middle part of the picture. So you will read this first because one, it has taken a lot of space. Second would be this one. Two, it has got a little contrast on it. And the third one would be this one because it has got less space on the screen, and also even though it is on the top, it has got less contrast and less space. That's the reason why you'll be looking that at the end. So these are some of the design principles that I wanted to touch base about. And this next up is about the Viz review programs that we have at JLL, and probably you could leverage in your companies as well. So the Viz review process, why do we have one? Um, so previously, when there was no such program that was existing, analysts used to just do the layout or take the colors all of by their own choices and come back, and it was very difficult for the peers and the stakeholders to understand. When we had this in place, we actually got a uniformity of the design, and the stakeholders and the analysts both got benefited by that. So when I say analysts got benefited, it is because it was less decision power that they needed to make. So it is they don't have to now decide which color to come next, or what is the um, what is the filter section should look like. Should it go on the right or should it go on the left? So there is no decision making there. So it has reduced the effort of analyst and the stakeholder, because they are used to so much of having these dashboards already. So they know where the filter section goes or where the parameters are, how do they click on the action buttons and all that. So it has reduced more efficiently. Like it has reduced the effort of both analysts and the stakeholders. So and even for the brand recognition, like if you walk into the supermarket again and you see a Coke bottle, you know how it tastes and what is the quality of it already. So to have this in place as a proper standard or a brand, it is quite important even for the stakeholders to feel safe. So it is, I think, it is quite an important process that every company should leverage on. So for us at JLL, we do have a two-step process. One is the COE, that is the Center of Enablement team. When an analyst is ready to put the dashboard in front of the stakeholder, the first process they have to go through is send it to the review of the enablement program. So mostly the COE covers all the standards that was previously set by the enablement team, and they would just take it off, saying that yes, 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 these are met, and then send it to the peer review. Peer review process is a weekly process. This is a meeting that we have over Microsoft Teams, and this is run every Thursday. So analysts who wanted to put the dashboard get it reviewed. So they put everything, all the details of the dashboard, on the chat on Monday, and people have some time between Monday and Thursday's call, and they just give the comments, and we just take the feedback using the terms like "I like," "help me understand," and "I suggest." It is no nobody's going to point out like this is wrong or that is wrong. There is a very constructive feedback, and what we cover in this process is more like the understanding what is the original business question is, and what the did the analyst use more appropriate charts, and how intuitive is the dashboard. We don't cover the fonts, padding, etc., because this would be already covered in the COE. Sorry, I have a really bad throat today. So that's it about the design principles and some the style guide that you can see. This is publicly available on Tableau Public. You can go have a look at that as well. Thank you for listening to me. If you have any questions, just feel free to put it on the chat or reach me out.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much,
Swati.
Swati.
And please probably just have a sip of water again. I know it's very
Thank you.
difficult to to speak when yeah not well. So thank you for putting in that efforts for us. It's really
Thank you.
appreciated. Yeah.
From the audience, if anybody have any questions, then you can ask now or put it in the chat. This was really interesting. I think two topics amalgamated together and created a good uh, knowledge process for everyone. I learned a lot specifically.
Yep. Those were
All right.
good tips, right? Specifically, and I really like how it went from chaos to the clarity, the world population. It was really interesting, and it kind of gives you a perspective like what should be ideally we focus on, and rather than just putting everything on the screen, it's just going to be chaos. Yep,
And it's
insightful.
actually very difficult to do that. Like doing simple things is really
That's
difficult,
true.
takes time.
Yep.
Uh, if there is no question, we have by Shaheen. Hey Shaheen. um, so Shaheen is asking, was there any instance you felt there was a difficult client who didn't accept the design standard, or they had their own take on say colors? I think this is for Swati.
Yeah, um, it is very natural that they would want a rag palette with red, green, and amber, saying that which is good or which is bad. It is very natural, right? You do face the stakeholders, but we try to tell them the importance of the design and the color. And like Shazira mentioned, we have to make sure that people with different kinds or disabilities, can they see that color? We have to make sure that these guidelines are abided by them as well. So just going by that, we just help them understand the importance of having these colors, the standard colors that we um, get by, we already follow a proper standard overall. So we will tell them the importance. If in case they are still telling us that they would want to go by the colors of their choice, then we would go to the enablement team, and we would just tell them or bypass that one particular dashboard. So it is, at the end, it is the stakeholder.
Yeah, being a JLLer, ex-JLLer, I have done that. Sometimes a very difficult conversation, but at the end we somehow agree to the middle ground.
Yes.
Uh, one I remember one instance where we provided them a switch when there was a color discussion. We provided them a switch between the uh, our own color palette and the rag palette, as you said, Swati. So they can
Yeah.
also switch to their own palette, but they also have the ability to look at the other one as well.
That's good. Yeah.
Yes.
Any other question?
I think we have one in Q&A. Shiv Prasad is saying, how can we build the portfolio for banking if we want to learn and switch into banking domain or any other domain? Um, who would like to answer this? I think
So
Shazira.
can you? I can't see the question. Okay.
Um, yeah, he's asking like how can we build
You
a portfolio for banking if we want to learn and switch into banking domain or probably any other domain. So basically switching from one domain to the other.
Yeah. I mean, first go by looking at some of the examples that you have in Tableau Public or some of the dashboards that are publicly available. So you can just go look at what they have. Say, for example, if I'm very new to insurance, I would probably look at what the insurance, the jargons are, understand what it is. So it is quite easy now. We have the Chat GPT available. You can just go and ask for what this question is and what is the meaning of it in layman terms. So it'll make you helpful, and you then go by thinking it again simpler way. Just what can you add, what is important to the business, and all this kind of things that you could go by.
Shazira, you will have to unmute if you're planned. Yeah.
Wow, the questions gets more deeper into career transition. I just want to add to what Swati said because I do go through that process. My portfolio on Tableau in the beginning was only full of my personal projects, and I don't have. I think I might have two or three more business-oriented dashboards. My advice would be don't feel intimidated by the fact that you want to transition into another field, and if your portfolio doesn't have those dashboards that you think your recruiter wants. What you can do is, of course, like in my case, I started to build the business dashboards. Even if it's not specifically on banking, you can start with the basic metrics, the KPI that are relevant to banking. So you know that for banking sector, they want to understand the client typology, they want to understand accounts, different products, profit, ROIs, and all that. So try to familiarize yourself with the basic metrics. Sometimes I think it's a nice balance as well to show that you cover the basics, and then you can learn as you go into the job further. And in my case as well, like I think sometimes your personal portfolio, the ones that you did already, your personal projects, don't feel like they're not going to help you in your career change. I think, and in my case, actually, my employer were really, really like my personal portfolio and can actually tap into my creativity. They can see from there that I'm a creative person, that, I know how to play with the design, I know how to apply the colors. So still sell yourself, your existing portfolio, while you try to cover, the more relevant metrics or KPIs related to banking. And don't feel like you need to have everything in place just because you're going to do the transition. That's my experience, at least.
That's nice. That's helpful. Thank you, Shazira. Okay.
I think there are no more questions. All right. Um,
I
so,
think there's one from Shraddha asking,
um,
I'm a B2B marketer.
okay.
Your
okay.
job description mentions Tableau platform. What level of Tableau knowledge is required for a B2B marketer? So this one probably, if you are actually looking about the knowledge, just try and again go to Tableau public source and try to click on the elements of the dashboard itself, like what is filter, what is the action that you can do, and how you can drill down from one view to the other, just so that you understand the intricacies of the dashboard itself. And for as a B2B marketer, probably it is more about the subject knowledge that you already would be having. So it is more about understanding the functionality of the dashboard itself. So I think just go by some examples on Tableau Public. That would be really helpful.
Yeah, I think more than Tableau knowledge, you require the data visualization skills. If you know that, you can always, learn any tool when you're on the job or you're doing the transition. So it's easy, and when you practice, it always gets better.
There's one question for Swati. So Sajay was saying,
I'm
I'm
not
not
very
very.
artistry. I'm not very artistry as well. Don't worry. Neither of us. So it is like just start with it. The problem
Hmm.
is basically comes when you don't start thinking that everybody is so good at Tableau or good at artistry. So just everything comes like just start by being simple. Just give it a go. There's nothing wrong in it. There's no right or wrong to such things, and just make it simple. And as you learn, and even if you see some of the very good designers today, you just have to go look down to their portfolio. You can't hear? Can you all hear?
Probably just refresh the browser once,
I can hear
Shraddha.
you actually.
Yeah, we
All
all
right.
can hear.
Okay.
So what I'm telling is, if you see some of the good dashboard designers today, they were once starters, right? They just, if you see their profile down there, it would be just a line chart or a bar chart. So there's nothing wrong. Every day you just get improved. Like you just have to keep trying until you are satisfied with the design yourself.
Yeah, I think I would like to add to what Swati said. Uh, it's not about if you are artistry. When you are designing the business dashboard specifically, it's all about how clear you are making the dashboard so that it is understandable by the user, stakeholder, or the client. So just try to follow the simple rules like keeping the font similar, same,
Yeah.
keeping the size same, keeping the color palette intact throughout the dashboard, and just try to keep it simple, as Swati explained, from chaos to clarity. I think Viraj said it very clearly. Try to make it very simple. It's going to shine out.
If I can say something about that, I think in my case, I like even now when I'm doing dashboards for the bank, my dashboards are internal for internal usage, so I cannot really share it publicly. But I think it's important to plan it first, to sketch it out, and I love to sketch it out. Do the wireframe first, and then discuss it with your stakeholders. And if possible, as well, is if you get the questions, if you get the KPIs clear, it also helps because I think sometimes when you deal with your stakeholders and your stakeholders want 100 KPIs, how can you put 100 KPIs in a dashboard? So it's also the process of actually prioritizing, identifying what are the goals of the dashboards, what you want to put in there. Also can help with the design later. So it has to you also have to have that mindset as well when you discuss with your stakeholders what you want to put on that on the dashboard. And I always have the I always have the other problem because people think that when you are too creative, when you are too artistic, then your dashboards cannot be taken seriously in the corporate sector. You know, they would think that I'm going to draw things on my dashboards. I'm going to put flowers. I'm going to put face of people, which is another way of looking at it as well. And so for me, it's like whatever skills you have, creativity, artistry, or in a way, you kind of had to channel it to be more towards solving the problem, towards clarifying things on your dashboard. You need to know where to channel it no matter what. So either way, you have the fear, whether you're artistic or not. You have the fear as well. So don't worry about that.
we
Sachiv,
all
I
are in
also
the
would
same
like
boat.
to add, saying that if you just post it on any social media, there is data fam who can come and comment on it, and there is a very constructive feedback, like what we have in the business as well. So the data fam is very approachable. Like you can just have the feedback, and there are so many sessions that are going on as well. Just if you want to touch. Talk about or pick some of the data farm members. They are always welcoming, so you can do that as well.
Thanks,
Yes,
Swati. I think we are really over the time
the
by
time.
half
Yeah,
an hour. But yeah, I would really
but
like to thank both our speakers and our joiners, the audience as well. So thank you so much. And now, the main part, the lucky draws. Viraj, do you want to take a stab at it?
yeah, right. So although we said it's a lucky draw, but then we were kind of having a kind of a condition apply, hidden agenda. But yeah, we wanted more engagement, and yes, we saw a good engagement in our session today. And thank you for doing that. And really, I really appreciate, because that shows, that helps us, probably bring more better content to you, better speakers to you. And I think us today's speakers were awesome. And our I think the previous event speaker, like Shaheen, is here, so that's interesting. So thank you for being here again and supporting the user group. So we have identified two attendees who have been active since the start of the event, and I really thank you for that. And once we announce your name, just DM us or DM me with your email ID, so that we can reach out to you separately and send you the send you your gift. So our first engaged member is Sajiv Kurup. So thank you for being an active member from the start, and please DM me your email ID. And the second active engaged member is Shraddha Sriram. So congrats. Please, as I said, earlier, please send your email ID to me as a DM, and we'll reach out to you for further queries. Thank you for being there today.
Congratulations, Shraddha and Sajeev. Do message us. Uh, yeah, thank you so much, Swati and Shazira and everybody. We will now close the event.